Chosen one, lock your attention on my voice right now and let the fear rising in your chest settle for a moment, because the way you work, earn, and provide is entering a sudden season of change. The last 72 hours may have felt unusual. Maybe you opened a work email and noticed something that made your stomach tighten. Maybe someone has been acting differently toward you, or a conversation got postponed without explanation. Maybe you woke up around 3 in the morning with a strong feeling that you cannot remain where you are much longer. You might feel exhausted from giving your best while receiving little recognition in return. The atmosphere around your career has been shifting, and the pressure you feel is not proof that you are failing. It only feels that way because the ground beneath a season that has become too small for you always shakes a little right before it changes. It all begins to turn in the next few days. The confusion, the stagnation, the fear of being overlooked. But hear this clearly. This shift is not happening because of luck. It is connected to the discipline, patience, and quiet preparation you maintained when no one applauded you. Think back to the moment this week when you wanted to send the angry message, quit without a plan, or confront someone who kept provoking you. Maybe you stayed silent instead. Maybe you walked away. Maybe you chose to finish your work even while feeling completely unappreciated. You thought that restraint meant weakness, but it may have protected your reputation and preserved an opportunity you could not yet see. You did not lose your value because someone failed to recognize it. You were being positioned. Before we go further, do something small with me. Tap that like button right now as your own quiet act of agreement with what you are about to hear. Type the word "ready" in the comments below, so this message can find the next chosen one who woke up at 3 in the morning wondering if they can stay where they are much longer. And if this is your first time here, subscribe now, because what follows will help you tell the difference between a closed door and a delayed answer. And that difference matters more than you think. You did not find this message by accident. Something in you, some quiet, spiritual discernment, is what caused you to stop scrolling and actually listen. Treat this moment as an appointment rather than a coincidence, a pause before a real transition. In the next few minutes, you will hear a declaration for favor and wisdom at work. You will identify the lie that has been convincing you to settle for less than your calling, and we will close with a prayer for clarity, protection, and the right opportunity. Do not leave before the end of it. Your future self needs you to understand the difference between a closed door and a delayed answer. Because if you move from fear right now, you may reopen a cycle that this season is actually trying to end. The doubt has been whispering a specific lie. You are replaceable. You are too late. Nothing will change unless you force it. It may be replaying that missed promotion, that uncomfortable meeting, or the moment someone dismissed your contribution. But an old truth still stands. Commit your work to what is greater than yourself, and your plans will be established. That is not a wish. It is a decree. Your worth is not determined by one manager, one company, or one disappointing season. The sudden change approaching may not look exactly as you imagined, but it can move you toward greater alignment, responsibility, and peace. The pressure you feel is not punishment. It may be preparation. You are not being pushed backward. You are being released from what can no longer contain you. Take a breath and let this settle. A sudden change in your work is not always about losing something. Sometimes it is about being released from an environment that could no longer hold what you are becoming. There are seasons when the structure around you shifts because the structure has become too small for the growth taking place within you. You may have been asking for increase, but increase could not enter through the door you kept defending. You called it stability. It may have actually been limitation. Sometimes the place that once protected you becomes the place that prevents you from moving. The familiar can feel like shelter, even when it has quietly become a ceiling. You knew how to function there, how to anticipate every demand, how to survive every difficult personality, how to earn approval by giving more than was required. But surviving an environment is not the same as flourishing in it. This is why the transition can feel so confusing. Your mind is looking for a familiar explanation, while your spirit is recognizing something larger. You want a schedule, a guarantee, a clear sequence of events. Yet faith often begins where the map ends. Abraham was told to go without being shown every mile ahead. Israel was given a cloud by day and fire by night, not a complete blueprint of every delay and provision they would encounter. They could not fully understand the wilderness while they were still grieving what they had left behind. They remembered the food they had eaten in captivity, but forgot the chains around their wrists. They romanticized what had enslaved them, simply because the desert felt unfamiliar, yet the place that looked empty became the place where their dependence was rebuilt. In the wilderness, they learned that bread could come from an unexpected place, water could come from a rock, and direction could appear in a cloud. What looked like a barren interruption became a classroom for trust. So before you panic, pause. Before you assume every change is punishment, ask what this shift is making room for. Ask what you could not become if everything remained exactly as it was. Not every closed door is rejection. Some doors close because your old identity has expired. You cannot carry a new assignment while remaining loyal to the version of you that only knew how to survive the old one. The person who endured that former season deserves compassion, but that person does not have to lead you forever. There was a time you needed to be agreeable, to stay quiet, to remain overworked just to feel worthy. But what protected you in one season may quietly imprison you in another. This means you have to stop measuring your worth by your position. A title may describe what you do, but it cannot define who you are. A paycheck can support your life, but it cannot establish your purpose. Before you were hired, promoted, or recognized, you were already valuable, and that value cannot be destroyed by a termination, a restructuring, or a change in leadership. If your confidence rises and falls with the approval of a manager or a particular role, this season may be exposing an attachment that was quietly becoming something you were worshipping without meaning to. It is possible to be grateful for a position while still allowing that position to become the source of your identity. And being freed from that fragile arrangement is not cruelty. It is release. Be grateful for the job, but do not worship the job. The employer may have signed the paperwork, but something greater sustained you through the years. The company may have deposited the money, but your strength, your skill, and your opportunity came from somewhere deeper than one paycheck. The stream may change, but the source is not limited to one stream. Elijah was fed by ravens in one season and by a widow in another. The method changed, but the sustaining hand did not. Israel received bread in the wilderness and later ate from an entirely different harvest. The provision looked different because the season was different. Do not reject the next blessing just because it does not arrive in the same packaging as the last one. A door may open through a conversation, a new skill, a surprising connection, or an opportunity you initially overlooked because it did not resemble what you had imagined. Now that you understand that, look honestly at the fear beneath the uncertainty. Fear will tell you that if this position disappears, your entire life collapses with it. It will place you in an imaginary future where every bill is overdue and every possibility has vanished. But fear is often an exaggerated prophet. It speaks with confidence about futures it has never actually witnessed. It studies your limitations, while faith studies what has carried you this far. Fear asks, "What if everything goes wrong?" Faith asks, "What if something is already working in ways I cannot yet see?" Do not make permanent decisions from temporary panic. Do not accept the first offer simply because it rescues you from discomfort. Do not run back to what wounded you merely because the unknown feels too wide. There is a difference between an open door and an escape hatch. An escape hatch removes immediate pressure while returning you to the same cycle. Let us pause here for a moment. If any of this is landing on something real in you, hit that like button one more time. Then leave the word wisdom in the comments, so someone else quietly weighing whether to stay or go can see it and feel a little less alone tonight. If you have not subscribed yet, do it now, because the next part of this message names something most people never say out loud about why their transitions keep stalling. Practical wisdom is spiritual wisdom when it is grounded in something honest. Look at your resources. Know what you owe, what you need, and what can wait. Make a plan, but do not worship the plan. Send the application, but do not place your entire hope in the application. There is a sacred pause between what ends and what begins. Most people rush through it because stillness makes them feel powerless, filling every moment with frantic research and activity that looks productive but is really an attempt to avoid uncertainty. But in that pause, your real motives become visible. You discover whether you wanted the next assignment because it was aligned or because it would prove something to the people who underestimated you. Do not despise that pause. A seed spends time underground before it becomes visible. The hidden season is not evidence that nothing is happening. Roots are forming where no one can applaud them. Character is strengthening where no one can measure it. While you are in that pause, pay attention to what your body has already been telling your mind for a while. The constant tension before the work week begins. The trouble resting. The sense that you are always performing but never quite becoming. Those signals deserve honesty rather than dismissal. Healing does not always start with a dramatic breakthrough. Sometimes it starts the moment you finally admit that something is no longer sustainable. Notice what happens when you imagine leaving. Do you feel relief, or grief, or fear of the unfamiliar? These questions are not meant to produce a quick answer. They are meant to help you listen beneath the noise long enough to hear the truth underneath it. Joseph was not promoted from the pit because he demanded a public explanation. He was shaped in hidden places until his character could carry the visibility his gift would eventually attract. The sudden change may not place you instantly on a platform. It may first place you in a room where your discipline matters more than your applause. You may have to serve before you lead, or begin again at a level that feels beneath your ability. David was tending sheep before he was standing in front of Goliath. The hidden field was not wasted time. It was where his hands learned courage. Not every uncomfortable job is the wrong job, and not every comfortable job is the right one. Growth can feel inconvenient, and a new assignment may challenge your confidence precisely because it is larger than your current experience. Moses felt inadequate before Pharaoh. Esther felt the danger of her assignment. Their discomfort did not automatically mean they were out of alignment. Sometimes resistance is not a warning to retreat. It is evidence that you are confronting the limits of an old idea of yourself. Courage is not the absence of trembling. It is obedience while trembling, and yet there is something beneath even that. You may not be afraid of failing in the next job. You may be afraid of succeeding and becoming responsible for the life you keep saying you want. Failure lets you remain in imagination. Success requires stewardship, consistency, boundaries, and the courage to let old relationships adjust to your growth. That is the hidden fear many people never name. They ask for the door, then quietly panic when the door opens, because the new room removes their excuses. If you are given influence, you will have to use it responsibly. If you are given visibility, you will have to withstand criticism. The new season may demand that you become more organized, more decisive, and more honest than you have been. So do not only ask for the opportunity, ask for the capacity to carry it without losing your character. Ask for emotional maturity, financial wisdom, and the courage to remain honest when compromise would be profitable. The blessing is not merely entering the new place. The blessing is becoming the kind of person who can remain whole inside it. Now listen carefully, because this next part is the layer most people miss entirely. The thing blocking your next assignment may not be your resume, your competition, or the people who opposed you. It may be your attachment to being needed in a place you are actually meant to leave. You have mistaken being indispensable for being valuable. You have stayed because people depend on you, but some of them depend on your overextension, not your health. There is a difference between being called to serve and being trapped by the fear of disappointing others. You are allowed to obey what you know is right, even when someone else calls it selfish. You are allowed to rest even when someone else has chosen not to manage their own responsibilities. Stop asking whether everyone will understand your transition. Some people only honor your growth when it benefits them. You cannot make their misunderstanding the authority over your future. If you wait for every person to approve the path ahead of you, you may remain in the same place forever. Release the need to leave perfectly. You may not have every detail. You may still feel nervous. You may have to take a temporary step while building toward a larger one. Guidance does not always arrive as a complete map. Sometimes it comes as enough light for the next faithful movement. So take the next honest step. Make the call. Submit the application. Learn the skill. Have the conversation. End the agreement that keeps pulling you backward. Rest without guilt. You do not need to feel completely fearless before you move. You need enough trust to take one obedient step, and when the opportunity comes, do not carry the bitterness of the place you left into it. Learn from what happened, but do not build your identity around being wounded. If you bring every old betrayal into every new relationship, you will make innocent people pay for injuries they did not cause. Forgiveness does not mean pretending the harm was acceptable. It means refusing to let the harm become your permanent address. The next environment deserves the healed version of you, not the guarded version still trying to punish the past. Chosen one. Pause with me once more before the final part of this message. Tap that like button again and leave the word alignment in the comments if any part of this has already started shifting something inside you. That word is not a performance. It is your own quiet marker that you are choosing to move with wisdom instead of fear. If you want this message to reach the next person who needs it exactly the way you needed it tonight, take 3 seconds and subscribe. Before we continue, Your next assignment should not only increase your income, it should increase your capacity to serve, create, lead, and live with integrity. And if the change does not happen exactly as you imagined, do not assume the promise failed. Sometimes the first sign of a new season is not the arrival of the final destination, but the loss of appetite for what once kept you trapped. You may notice that conversations which once impressed you now leave you empty. You may no longer be able to celebrate achievements that cost you your peace. You may begin longing for meaningful work rather than merely impressive work. That restlessness is not ingratitude. It may be the stirring of a deeper assignment. Place your hand on your heart and declare this with me. I release my dependence on titles, approval, and familiar places. I release the fear that one closed door means my future is closed. I trust what is guiding my steps to strengthen my hands and connect me with work that aligns with my gifts and my character. I will prepare without panic, move without manipulation, and wait without losing hope. I will not confuse delay with denial or discomfort with destruction. I am becoming ready for what I have been asking to carry, and I step forward with wisdom, courage, and peace. If this message met you in a season of transition, do 3 small things before you go. Tap that like button one final time, not for anyone else, but as your own quiet declaration that you are ready to move with wisdom instead of fear. Type the words "I am ready" for the next assignment in the comments below. Not as a performance, but as a personal declaration. And subscribe right now, so the next word finds you exactly when you need it, the same way this one found you tonight. If you know someone who has been afraid of a sudden change at work, send this to them. Sometimes the encouragement someone needs arrives through one honest message at exactly the right time. Your season is turning. Meet it with wisdom instead of fear, and walk forward into it steady, prepared, and unafraid.